At this point in the game, if you don't know that the Great Pyramids represent a machine, then you're either not paying attention or you're a professional archaeologist. But if we approach the Great Pyramids with the idea that we're looking at a functioning machine of some sort, we can begin asking some very simple questions. And the most simple one is, how is this thing powered? That answer begins with the Great Sphinx, with the Sphinx itself, because there are clues all over the Sphinx that give us, well, most of the information that we need to understand the first part of the circuit and of the machine created by these quite clever ancient people. Welcome to Disclosure 47, an investigation of the Sphinx. We're going to begin our investigation with the oldest photos of the Sphinx, because it is in these photos that we discover the face of the Sphinx was originally found black. And when they pulled the sand away, what was underneath was not black. Only the very head was black. And it's not just weathering, because old sketches that are hundreds of years old show that the neck had also been exposed. And yet the neck is not discolored. The discoloration is either a byproduct of the machine's purpose or of its failure, or both. I would recommend a chemical analysis if you can still find any of that soot, which was clearly removed during restorations. My guess is that we will find a carbon deposit indicating high heat exposure. To understand the pyramids, we need to understand what was here in the region we now call Egypt before the apocalypse. According to the Native American Ute creation story, prior to the apocalypse, the surface of the earth was coated by layers of fine clay or earth and then water over a long period of time. That clay was then baked by the electromagnetic pulse, the EMP, of the apocalypse. And that pulse left us the limestone we see in Giza today. And so these line striations of the Sphinx are the layerings of the limestone set down over millennia. That's where the layering of the limestone around the Sphinx and the pyramids originally comes from. And so we can say that the Sphinx and the pyramids are a post-apocalyptic creation, because the limestone was a creation of the apocalypse, and the Sphinx is made up of that limestone as well. Critical to our reorientation of our history is the fact that all rock on planet Earth's surface is in fact a creation of the apocalypse. And that is why we recognize the emergence of a Stone Age directly after the apocalypse. It wasn't that people had a sudden realization and adaptation of stone as a tool that archaeologists later found. It was a world where stone was quite suddenly an available material for use, and they began using it. We're going to continue to use the apocalypse as our timeline anchor for a moment, because it brings us to the Dream Stele found directly below the head and between the paws of the Sphinx.
The oldest DNA on Earth belongs to the Aboriginal tribes of Australia, and they refer to the time of creation as the dream time. We should take that reference as literally as possible. If it says that we emerged from a dream time, then ergo, we must have been in a dream state prior to the apocalypse. Dream time, real time. The Dream Stele is the story of the dream becoming real when the poles of our planet flipped from south to north in the apocalypse. This pole flip reversed our experience as the polarity of the planet reversed. That which was mortal according to the ancients now died. The proto-Earth was a Garden of Eden, and in the apocalypse, mankind fell from grace. We believe in a BC and an AD. We believe there is a before Christ, and that there is an Anno Domini, which is Latin for the year of the Lord. It isn't the same as before Christ, because it denotes that we began counting years in the physical world.
The proto-earth was a Garden of Eden, and mankind fell from that grace. What does the Dream Stele tell us? It tells us when it was written, which was quite literally just after the apocalypse. The stele begins, year 1, 3rd month of the first season, day 19. Year 1, as in the first year after the apocalypse. 3rd month of the first season means March, and the identification of the first season is quite literally the first season ever in the history of Earth. It was the 19th day of the very first March in the year 1 AD, after the apocalypse. I'm not making things up here. That's the agreed text on the freaking Dream Stele. The Dream Stele goes on to describe that we live under the majesty of Horus. Horus is not the sun god. That's Ra. Horus is the flow of energy from the sun. He is Menkaperu Ra, the son of Ra. The positive current from the sun repels the 9 bows, meaning the 9 arced bows of the 9 planets. It uses bows because it is synonymous with the bow and arrow. All 9 planets are electrically connected to the sun at all times, and they are connected in an arc like a bow. Horus repels the 9 bows from falling into the sun. For our next clue, we have to look at the oldest photo once again, because it does the best job of showing these vertical striations in the rock. Note how the normal limestone striations are predictably horizontal and run the width of the Sphinx. Even more odd, these marks exist only on the left side of the Sphinx chest. There are no lines like this on the right side of the Sphinx, running vertical. Not only that, but the center of the Sphinx has a bulged sternum that has experienced less erosion than the 2 sides. All of these clues suggest that what we are looking at are 2 hemispheres of polarity occurring left and right of the Sphinx chest. When the stele says Horus is the favorite of the 2 goddesses, it is describing the 2 hemispheres of the magnetic field, because all magnetism has a female designation in ancient literature.
What we don't know is what is happening inside the Sphinx. But what we can do is base our model on what we can see. And what we see is a hole in the head of the Sphinx with a guy climbing out of it. And that hole screams exhaust. In this case, an exhaust for a gliding arc reactor. A couple of things about a gliding arc reactor, according to Grok. The gas remains at a low temperature, near room temperature, while the electrons are highly energetic, enabling efficient chemical reactions without excessive heat. The energetic electrons are what cause the erosion in the walls through an electric sputtering effect. That's why the erosion is on the inside of the walls of the pit, but not on the surface causeways. Any chambers below that we may find would be for the creation and housing of the gases produced, which would have been primarily hydrogen and methane. Both are super useful to produce in large quantities for agricultural purposes. Both would leave minimal residual evidence, especially hydrogen.
So what is the Sphinx and how does it work? Animism is the idea that inanimate things can have characteristics like a human. And so a Sphinx is a feline, and they have sharp claws that grab things. And the job of the Sphinx each day was to grab the sun as it rose. Archaeologists think of these ancient religions as nothing more than being symbolic of a religion, but they really are more than just quaint practices of a primitive people. One thing you have to grasp is found in the work of Uri Geller, who can bend objects with his mind. When the ancients practiced their rituals, they were animating the characteristics of the object. They were bringing the Sphinx to life as a functional characteristic of a machine, like turning the crank handle on a car, except in this case, the worship was a way of activating the electromagnetic processes of the Sphinx. It is a way of connecting the Sphinx each day to the sun's power, using human consciousness. And when they did connect, they operated like a perpetual motion machine, using two magnetic fields. The Sphinx and the pyramids are in just the right place globally and in relation to the sun, because that's how you use it to connect. When you do that, you get a machine to create this magnetic vortex, and if it does, it creates a plasma field of induced current. The plasma catalysis process is used in decarbonizing things. And so when the Sphinx operated, it was the carbon molecules that were primarily ripped away from the surfaces, causing the erosion. So why did the machine stop working? What likely happened was a massive solar storm causing an electrical arc, blowing out the machine like a transformer in a modern electrical grid. But when the machine broke, when it overloaded, it reversed. And at a certain point, that electrostatic force pulled the sand and the gravel and the grass in on top of it, overloading the machine's ability to dissipate. And at a certain point, the Sphinx caused a flash frying of the head, turning the organic carbon material around it into a flame that then carbonized on the head of the Sphinx. That's why the head of the Sphinx was black when they found it.
Has anyone seen my nose?
Yeah, you had an epic sneeze. You blew your nose out. All across Egypt. Like, everywhere.
I see. Can I get a glass of water?
Yeah, I'll get Jorge on that right away. Hang on. Yo, Jorge. You want to get this guy a glass of water?
All I got is Sunny D.
Oh, Sunny D, all right.